have already seen what is text, what is context, and how text gets its meaning in context, or how context is responsible for giving a meaning to a text. But this particular lecture specifically deals with discourse. I'm sharing the slide, and I hope now you are able to see the slide. So we will discuss discourse from various perspectives. We will discuss discourse from language perspective. At the same time, we will discuss the relationship between discourse and ideology. We will discuss a literary perspective and how a discourse occurs in literary perspective. Then what is the meaning? So all such things we will discuss. Previously, we have discussed discourse from a linguistic point of view. Now we will expand that perspective, and we will move to other disciplines so that we will have a better understanding of discourse. Now, the first thing is to define discourse. And the one way of defining a discipline or a word is to look for the etymology. And we find that this word discourse in the English language has been derived from Latin word discursus. So this is a root that we have for the word discourse, and the meaning of discursus is argument. Again, when we consider present day Latin language, then we find that there is also a verb, discurrere, in Latin, and the meaning of the word discurrere is a running to and fro. So these two meanings are associated with the word discourse etymologically. But when we use discourse, we talk about verbal communication, talk, or conversation. Now the points that I am going to discuss in these slides, they are talking about the dictionary meaning of discourse. They are focused on the dictionary meaning, and particularly I have taken into consideration Collins' Concise English Dictionary, published in 1988. So one meaning of discourse that we find in this dictionary is verbal communication. Now the meaning of verbal is both oral and written. That is one meaning. A talk, conversation, that is oral, but it is also applicable to written communication. Then the second meaning in this dictionary is a formal treatment of a subject in speech or writing. Now, a formal treatment, that means we are treating something formally. So we know that we have a formal way of saying thing, and we have an informal way of saying thing. So when we talk to let's say our relatives, when we talk to our friends, then we use informal speech. Or let's say when you are writing a diary, when you are preparing notes, then it is an informal way of communication. But when we talk about discourse, then a formal treatment. That means this lecture is a formal. It's a formal lecture. If you raise a question after this class, that is again a formal treatment. in the teaching learning discourse that we have. Similarly, a novel, a poem, that is again a formal way of writing. So this is another meaning, that a formal treatment of a subject in speech and writing. Discourse can be formal or informal, but these are various meanings that are associated with the word discourse, and we are trying to capture the essence of this word discourse. And definition is the first step, or you can consider it as a second step, because etymology is the first step to try to find out the essence of that particular word, to try to find out the meaning of that particular word. Now, the third meaning of this word discourse is a unit of text used by linguists for the analysis of linguistic phenomena that range over more than one sentence. So this definition, this third definition, a unit of text used by linguists for the analysis of linguistic phenomena. This we have already discussed when we take the example, wash and core 6 apples, put them in the bowl, from Cohesion in English by M.A.K. Halliday and Ruqayya Hassan. So this is, we discussed like how put them anaphor gets its meaning from the antecedent 6 apples, and we also discussed that these two sentences, they are subjectless, and these two sentences are an example of imperative sentence. So these things we have discussed. So third definition, a unit of text used by linguists for the analysis of linguistic phenomena. This third definition is fit for that type of analysis, as we did previously in the previous classes. But here you can see that we have used the word text, a unit of text. Here it means that there are certain linguists who make a distinction between discourse and text. So they consider discourse as a spoken thing and text as a written thing. So this is the difference this third definition also reflects. Now the fourth one is a verb, to discourse. So what is the meaning of to discourse? The ability to reason, but this is not the usage in fashion in the modern English. So this is an archaic use of the word discourse, to use the word discourse in a verb form. Then we have a phrasal verb, to discourse on and to discourse upon. And what is the meaning of this phrasal verb? To speak or write about formally, or to hold a discussion. So these are various definitions, and we have some information how dictionaries, they try to define the word discourse. So now we have a fair idea that discourse is related to communication. It can be a written communication or oral communication. Then communication can be formal, informal, and it has to do with reason. So these meanings are associated with the word discourse. At the same time, a running to and fro from the modern Latin, and the verb is discurrere, is also it also comes into play when we take into consideration the example given by Ruqayya Hassan and M.A.K. Halliday in the book Cohesion in English, that wash and core 6 apples, put them in a bowl. Now, what we see in this example, that anaphor them is in search of its meaning, and it gets its meaning from six apples, and six apples, this particular phrase occurs in the previous sentence. So it is again like a running to and fro. So words are in fact running to and fro to get their meaning. And this entire thing, running to and fro, uh, creates cohesion of the text. So many meanings are associated, and we have discussed how these meanings are useful in order to understand and in order to define what is discourse. Now we will move forward, and again we will try to define discourse in terms of what other linguists, other theoreticians, they think. Now, another way of defining a word is to make a contrast with other words. One thing is just to define it, how it is similar to certain things. For example, discourse is verbal communication, discourse is talk, or formal treatment of a subject in speech and writing. So these are the similarities that we are trying to find out. So this is one way of defining things. Another way of defining thing is how certain thing is different from others. So discourse is also largely defined by what it is not, what it is set in opposition to. Thus, discourse is often characterized by its difference from a series of terms such as text, sentence, and ideology. As I have already told, that certain linguists, they consider text as a written communication and discourse as an oral communication. At the same time, previously we have discussed that when we have more than one sentence, then we are very much into discourse. But today, in the later sides, we will also discuss how discourse is associated with ideology. So ideology basically is a way of thinking, a regulated way of thinking, a rule-governed way of thinking. That is ideology. For now, you understand ideology like that, but we will discuss the term ideology in detail uh, with respect to the word discourse. Now, Geoffrey Leach and Michael Short argue that discourse is linguistic communication seen as a transaction between speaker and hearer, as an interpersonal activity whose form whose form determined by its social purpose, whose form is determined by its social purpose. So there is a mistake in this slide. Now, discourse is a linguistic communication because Geoffrey Leach and Michael Short both are linguists. So they try to define discourse linguistically, but at the same time they are making a difference, a contrast with the term text. Here, discourse is defined in terms of a transaction between speaker and hearer and an interpersonal activity. So when we talk to each other, when you talk to your parents, when you talk to your friends, when you talk to your teacher, then you are into an interpersonal activity. There is a transaction between you and the hearer if you are the speaker. And why do you do that type of transaction? Transaction is a word generally we use in economy, but this transaction of ideas, like you say something, then the hearer will say something. So continuously things they go on like this. It is determined by the social purpose because you need something when you talk to your teacher, because it's a social purpose, because you are the part of this course, and there is a possibility that you have certain doubts you want to clarify. Then there is a possibility uh, uh, that you want to suggest something, or you want to know which are the books that you should read for a better understanding for this course. So this first thing by Leach and Short, while defining discourse, is related to it is an oral communication. But at the same time, Leach and Short, they argue that text is linguistic communication seen simply as a message coded in its auditory or visual medium. Now, you find this uh, second definition about text bit complex, a message coded in its auditory or visual medium. So here basically they are taking into consideration that type of message that is either auditory or visual. So your book is a visual. Now this lecture is both auditory as well as visual medium. But this lecture is a discourse because there is a transaction between I and you, and there is an interpersonal activity. But in the second definition, Leach and Short, they are focusing on that type of linguistic communication where there is no way to give your feedback. For example, you are reading a book. Reading a book is not auditory but a visual medium. But writer is not available to receive your feedback. Similarly, if you have any doubt related to the text, then again you cannot raise your doubt because writer is not available. So that is simply a message coded in some language, either in auditory or visual medium, but you can't give your feedback. Even if you give your feedback, but nobody is there to read that feedback. So you watch some, let's say, a YouTube video, and there is a lecture, let's say, on literary theory, and a professor is giving a lecture on literary theory, but the professor is not available to read your comments. There is a possibility that that the professor is very regular and reading all the comments, but still in many cases the professor is not available. Let's say the lecture is 10 years old, then the professor, if the professor is like that, professor is no more, but lecture is still there on the virtual mode, then obviously the person who delivered that particular lecture is unavailable. And similar is the case with most of the novels that we read, because the novels, the plays, the poetry that you read, they are written by the writers who are now no more. So you can't just provide your feedback to them. So this is a thing that you need to take into consideration, that that both discourse and text, they are linguistic communication, but in one type of communication there is a transaction, but in the second there is only a message coded. So this is also one of the views, uh, but this view sets discourse and text in opposition. That means they are not similar, they are different. Now there is one another theoretician, Michael Stubbs. Now Michael Stubbs also contrast between these two terms. So text is something that is written, discourse is something that is spoken, then text is non-interactive. So interactive is when there is a when both the parties, they say something, then there is an interaction. But discourse is something that is interactive, When it comes to text, text may be short or long, but when it comes to discourse, it must be of certain length. That means it can't be short. And when it comes to text, must be possessed of surface cohesion. So there must be some surface cohesion. When we talk about surface cohesion, that means we are talking about the language. For example, wash and core 6 apples, put them in a bowl. So again, what type of cohesion we have? Them gets its meaning from the word 6 apples. This is an example of surface cohesion. Must be possessed of deeper coherence because it is spoken. So once you are talking to a person, and once you have an interaction with that person, then certain things are said, certain things are not said. So many things are elliptical, they are substituted by silence, they are replaced by gestures. So that's why here we have written that discourse must be possessed of deeper deeper coherence. Fine. So this is again, we try to define discourse, but we set text in a position. So this is again a way how you can define a topic, or how you can make it more understandable through contrast. Now David Crystal talks about discourse and text analysis. Discourse analysis focuses on the structure of naturally occurring spoken language. Again, here the focus is spoken. So when the term discourse is used, the focus is on spoken, as found in such discourses as conversations, interviews, commentaries, and speeches. So all such conversations can be formal, informal. Interviews are generally formal. Commentaries are also formal. Speeches can be formal, informal. So again, but it is spoken, related to spoken, the discourse analysis. That means when you are taking into consideration spoken language. Text analysis focuses on the structure of written language as found in such texts as essay, notices, road sign, and chapters. But this distinction is not clear cut, and there have been many other uses of these labels. So again, what David Crystal says in the Cambridge Encyclopedia of Language, that the distinction between discourse is there, but this is not very clear cut, because uh, we have blurring lines between what is discourse analysis, what is text analysis. So this is again a linguistic view of looking at what is discourse and what is text, but here the focus is more on the analysis part. Another view by Emil Benveniste on discourse. So Benveniste contrasts discourse with the language system. Now again, here this thing is important. The language system and discourse. Now different type of contrast. Previously we saw the contrast between discourse and text, but here the entire language system and what is discourse. This is the contrast. With the sentence, we leave the domain of language as a system of science and enter into other universe, that of language as an instrument of communication whose expression is discourse. So this is again something that is formal and something that is functional. So when we take into consideration the language system, and when we talk in Sassurian terms, that language as a system of sign, that means we are talking about the sentence level analysis of language. But when we leave at sentence level, and when we move to higher levels, let's say discourse, then we treat language as an instrument of communication. That means when someone raises a question, uh, what is the use of language, then you will say language is for communication. So language as an instrument of communication whose expression is discourse, and how this entire communication takes place, that takes place in discourse. So these are certain views that we have discussed, and and we will proceed further, but I stop here.